Hello, here we have a camper van. It's an old camper van and it belongs to a friend of ours who's, well, was a trucker in his early days. So we have this, we've done a little bit of paintwork to it, and on the back we want a couple of, well, he wants to keep on trucking with a little picture of a truck and a little couple of Rutes logos on each corner. Right, so now I have obviously paint, my palette, little dippers. Now, I'll put the gaffers on. Obviously we're doing the little logos on each side first because we have they're blue and red and the red is touching the blue. So if we get this out of the way first, then obviously it means it can dry while I'm doing the rest of the lettering. As you can see, I've already put a piece of lining tape across. That's just 3M's lining tape. As you said before, can't get hold of sellotape, don't do it. Just makes things so much quick and simple. Right, so we'll get this piece done. Obviously selecting a brush. You don't want a brush too big, you don't want it too small. If it's too small, it will leave loads of little brush marks. If it's too big, then you might have just problems moving the brush. So let's just get this knocked out first. Always the same, I always tend to start sort of around to the right and then we come back round to the left, and that seems to be the general rule for, well, if you're right-handed at least. So let's just go around, not even won't bother using my rule stick, we just get on there, we come up to the line and slightly twist the brush, we come round and we're there. And then we come back around the other side, picking up on the line, and once you're on there, hold it there, right the way to the end, done. Put on the tape. A bit more paint. Because it's a shape, not a letter, we can make this a little bit thicker. Obviously we want it to cover. And once we get the paint on there, just literally just want to lay it off. If you want to brush it too much, just lay it off. And let it do its own thing. And that is basically it. And then all we can do is we can just pull the tape off. Simple. And let it dry. And that's that really. Now, I'll be back in a minute with a different colour blue for the writing. Right, we're back, sorry, just another little thing. Right, just wash my brush out before I get the next colour blue. So, I've rinsed it out. Now, the one thing you don't want to do, especially in a hot country, is never let your brush dry out, because once it dries out, then obviously you start going to get bits in it and the paint will build up in the ferrule. So, we rinse the brush out. But obviously I might use this brush again later on today. So what I'll do is I'll leave it full of white spirit and then we'll lay it down on our box. And basically that is just now sitting there and that will stay wet for a couple of hours. You can always come back and re-wet it. But the one thing I don't want to do is each time I use a brush I don't want to get the grease out and grease it up and put it away, because then you're getting covered in grease and everything else. And it saves washing the brush out, because the more you don't keep washing things out, it's wear and tear on the brush, etc. So we just leave it there, and that way it's not going to dry out. You don't want to sort of wipe it dry and put it down, because then it's going to dry out very quickly. So we leave it, put the thinners in there, and then we can just leave it sitting there quite happily for a few hours till we come back. Just wanted to sort of get that one out. I'll be back shortly when I've changed my colour paint. Okay, back, different blue, different brush. Now this is the sort of style, sort of 70s I suppose, what you used to see on the magazines, on the car magazines or whatever. this is going to be blue with a yellow edge line. I'm not necessarily keen with blue yellow edge line, but that's what the customer wants. So that's what we're going to do. So I'm obviously not going to be too bothered about the actual outside line because I'm putting an edge line around it, but nonetheless. And also you have the style there just as a reference because it's something, this style's not something I'm used to painting, so you look backwards and forwards. So here we go. As you paint, sometimes you find the character of the style and it becomes a bit easier as we do it, and that's when it then starts to flow. This is a bit of artistic license really, so the person that taught me to sign right is he'd leave me do a panel, but what he would do, he wasn't really bothered about the shape, but what he would like to do is see how the brush strokes were, to see how I sort of went around and formed my letter. Then I picked that pretty quick as a student, and I just used to finish off my brush strokes afterwards to make it look like I'd done it in fewer strokes than I actually had. She's probably listening now, so I'll be quiet. One thing I can't stress enough is always look back and check your work. Because sometimes you could be just too close to it and you don't actually see what you're doing. It's a funny looking cake, but that's the style it is. So. Obviously, so try and play with it as little as possible and let the paint do its thing. If you play with the paint too long and it gets a bit tacky, then it won't flow out. So. Remember to use both sides of the brush. Obviously, if you have two letters the same together, then obviously you want to try and make sure they look the same. That's the important thing. Oh, now the customer's just turned up. Probably wants to get in on the video. Hello. Evening. Keep on travelling. We owe this pleasure. Oh, it's just come back from the hospital. It's got a popping in here. Just in time for another cup of tea. Yeah. Right, we'll leave it there. Cup of tea. And we'll go back.